Hello, my name is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 268 of Game with Grief. And this episode is all about Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga. But before we get into all that, just remember to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on podcast services like Apple iTunes or Amazon Music or Spotify, subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff. You can even write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. That's gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Just want to get that out of the way before we start the episode. But before we do the actual review, there is going to be some spoilers. But this game is pretty, I don't know. I'm not going to get into total, well, you know what? I'm probably going to get into all spoilers, let's be honest. But I just want to give you some technical information about the game before we get into the episode and review and spoiler cast proper. So you've been warned, there's going to be spoilers. Don't watch or listen to this before you beat the game, or maybe you don't care. There's things in my life I listen to, they're going to spoil something, I don't really care about it. Yeah, you could do that too. I originally viewed Hellblade, the original one, Senua Sacrifice, in episode 143 of Gaming with Grief. So it was a long time ago. There was a documentary that came out with that I also watched and reviewed. I didn't know if I have this in the original one, but I'll go over again. Ninja Theory was founded in the year 2000. From what I read, Cambridge, England. Pretty interesting. They and I gotta just say this, they worked on Heavenly Sword, I remember that, but they also worked on Disney Infinity, which I personally loved. I had all the figures. I was just a simp, you put them on the platform, they scan. The combat and stuff in Disney Infinity was great. So whatever they did, I know this is way different than Hellblade, but I thought Disney Infinity was great. So you guys did a great job with that. Hellblade came out in 2017, and obviously this came out 2024. I usually, again, don't try to look at reviews and things, but because this was so kind of anticipated, an Xbox release, a first-party Xbox release, I did hear some impressions and things of the game. It may have, affected my review or judgment or whatever, but I don't know. We'll just get into it. So we'll get into it with the review. Again, if you like what you're hearing or seeing, please like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. Hit the thumbs up and all that, because the more you like things, the more people see it. And I just got a notification from YouTube that apparently more people are seeing my video. So everybody out there that has shared it, thank you so much. But with that, we'll get into the video proper. Hey. First off, I would just recommend that if you are going to listen to this video or play Senua's Sacrifice, to use headphones. They did a good job. I think it's called binaural audio, where everything kind of, kind of fades in and out between the left and right. And if you have a really good pair of headphones, I have the standard ones you saw me recording the intro with. It's from Xbox. They were like $60, but it sounds really, really good. So I just recommend that before I get into the review proper. And also there's a documentary called Senua's Psychosis. So I will include that in the show notes and the below, the description, everything of the episode. So, watch that. And at first I thought it was just a, just like the first documentary was Senua's Sacrifice, but it's actually a whole new, documentary. They have a new, someone who's recovering from psychosis. They interview the same doctor that was in the first one. I'm sorry I didn't write this down. Just to start out, my impressions, again, I said I heard some reviews. I was very excited to, play not excited. See, this is weird. So this whole game was kind of a love-hate relationship. Like I said, I heard those early impressions when I was listening to different podcasts. Everybody said it was kind of slow. And I needed something kind of quick to pick me up, and I kind of put off reviewing this game. But I think in the end, I'm glad I did. But I will say, this is a short game. It's only 5 or 6 hours. I had to stop and start a lot, because I think that there is just, the pace is purposely slow. So that's just a heads up for anybody who's going to go out and play and think this is, the most action-packed game ever. This is just a very... kind of briskly, well, not even brisk, that's the wrong word. It's just you need to take your time with this game. And again, I think when I got done, I was so conflicted at the end. I guess looking over my notes and everything, I think the one thing that I always try to come away with when I play a game, and especially with this podcast, with grief and kind of representations of grief, and that's kind of what the purview of this podcast is. The idea that I want some articulation. I want to see something move forward. I don't think it was. It was interesting. Obviously, in Senua's Sacrifice, it came out in 2017. The idea that we will show psychosis. We will show what people experience through audio. Again, the binaural audio, like the voices people hear. You will see symbols in the world, and that is a symptom of psychosis. They interviewed doctors. Again, that documentary at the end of the first game. These are things that people experience when they are, in the grips of psychosis, I guess would be the right way to say it, hopefully. But I guess in the second game, they said, hey, we want to show Senua in a different place. She understands what she's gone through, but she is a changed, different person now, and she is moving forward with her experience and not letting that define her. To me, that's kind of perfect to say, we're going to show you in a different place. I understand that recovery is not a straight line. You can't go from like A to B and be like, oh, I'm fine now. I don't need to worry about any of this. The thing is, I feel there was very few times where it really touched on that. Again, I don't want Senyu to be completely cured from her psychosis. But there's these weird dips where she did push back against the voices in her head. I don't feel it was enough. She interacted with people around her. And there's this strange theory I've heard that maybe none of this happened. At the end of the game, you unlock a new narrator, meaning there's a new voice in your head that's kind of walking you through everything. I definitely want to maybe play the first chapter just to experience what that is like. I did not do that for this. But I think for me, there's also this thing of, people knew that Senua was different, but it doesn't, I don't know. There's a trope, right? And I've gone over tropes on this podcast before, but there's this trope that somehow mental illness is like a superpower or any kind of like difference, like, any kind of like handicapped or, like anything that is considered possibly a disability or being disabled is somehow makes you better than people. I don't know about better, but it just makes you different. And there's a scene, I played it in the first clip, where she's talking to, I want to say Jorgensen. That's probably wrong. But anyway, she's talking to this, he's kind of like a druid, like the seer of the village, he heals people. And he says, well, you may be able to go talk to the hidden ones because you're different than everybody. And one, they hadn't talked that long or met that long. So I don't know how he would know that about her. She didn't seem very open with like, oh, by the way, I hear voices in my head. It's kind of a thing that happens. If you get to know me, we're going to have to talk about it once in a while. Stuff like that. None of that really happened. So like this idea of her, they're like, oh, you need to go talk to these invisible people because you're better and different. I didn't like that. But I think, again, she pushed back on some of the voices in her head enough. And she did want to help people. The story is that the giants have come and taken over this place she's at and it is an old trope, but I like it. Again, it's a trope, the idea that you need to know someone's real name before you can hurt them or affect them. And I thought, that was all very good. The visual cues when you were learning somebody's story was interesting. The end, you're taken as a slave in the beginning and you want to go to this new place to stop other people being taken. You meet one of the son of the Bjorn, I think he's like the prince basically. And you hurt him, you could kill him, but you don't want to do that. You want him to take you where the rest of the slaves are. You finally, in the end of the game, meet his father. The father is basically sacrificing people to the giants so that way they can be left alone and continue their lives. And you realize that the father is the last giant. I thought all that was very clever. I really liked that. You fought him in the end. The game ends a bit on a cliffhanger, but it does have a message of hope saying that, this is my choice now. I get to choose. Even though this is part of me, she's at least with it enough to, with it is the wrong term. She's basically in a point in her life where she can recognize these voices in my head aren't there, or they're not real, or it's just part of me. And I think that part I enjoyed, the idea that, that whatever this trauma, and I talk about it with grief all the time, you have to move on with it, not from it. And I think that is very good. But I think too, like, this game is very slow paced. So you're thinking to yourself, where is this going? And the fact that she's killing giants, I understand there has to be a story, but like, I don't know, I'm so conflicted about this game. Now, that's not to say I don't think anybody poured their heart into this and that nobody cared. You could tell they cared so much. And it is probably the most visually striking game I've ever played. In fact, my wife walked in about halfway through it and was like, wow. She goes, well, this is obviously very beautiful. And to the end scene with the king, the prince, and Senua when they were having, a conversation, I put the headphones on my wife just so she could hear the binaural audio with the voices in Senua's head going back and forth. And she was like, that's amazing. And I was like, yeah, they did that to show, the psychosis. And so, although I'm conflicted about the game, I do think it is still worth at least trying the first chapter. Again, if you're looking for something a little bit faster or a little bit more action-paced, this is not it. I still don't know how I feel about combat. I know in some of the early impressions I heard, people didn't like combat. I like combat, but not for the reasons you think. I never felt that I had a rhythm with combat or that I was getting it, but just cinematically, it was gritting my teeth the whole time trying to get through it. And I think maybe that is probably another aspect of the psychosis, So did this game articulate something new about psychosis? Yes, I think it did. It articulated the fact that, I need to move on with these experiences and I'm in a better place and now I can make a choice on which way I want to go. So there, I applaud it. Some of the other things that I think, that they kind of retread from the first game were the symbols, which again, they're trying to psychosis, but I wish that would have evolved a little bit because it kind of felt like a repeat. And combat, they said something like, I heard an interview with the head of the studio. He said, we really try to focus on combat and make it more action-packed. I did not feel that. I felt this was a more cinematic way to show what they had done in the first game. It didn't feel more responsive or anything. You know what? I was thinking about this morning, and the way I categorize this game is like an Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2. It feels like a remake of the first game with some new messaging, but in a much more polished way. And, again, this may sound negative, but like, I'm not saying that like nobody was lazy, nobody did whatever. I just don't know if it's going to have, because it ended on a cliffhanger and in a way, and her idea of choosing, I didn't think was clear. I thought the first game did a good job of just holding on Senua for a beat to have her really kind of feel the severity of what was happening, and I did not feel that with this. I felt it just ended very quickly, and that was it, and that was what we got. So this game does articulate something new about psychosis. It is beautiful, but it is also very slow. So I guess if you want to experience it, it is on Game Pass. So I would recommend just downloading the game and trying maybe the first chapter to see if it speaks to you in any way, shape, or form. And if it does, it's great. If you want to write to me at gwgpodfellows.com, do that. Let me know what you think of the game. You could say, Joe, you're being stupid. This game is amazing. Love to hear it. If not, to each his own. So I will say I will recommend this game, but with the caveat that, hey, just try maybe a little bit at a time or do what I did. Play it for big chunks and then set it down for a bit. And, I think that really helped me because trying to push through this, I think, would have been pretty rough. So I guess with that, I recommend the game. Again, it's on Game Pass. Download it. I think that's it for this week. I will talk to everybody next week.